name is Natalia Chavez. Today I'm going to talk about the reality of assessment, evaluation, and testing. Every day in our school, we have to face with the three words. When we talk about evaluation, assessment, and testing, all of us come with a different perspective in terms to giving those concepts a true definition. We can search for different kinds of authors, teachers, researchers trying to find the right definition of those terms. But all teachers, students, and parents cannot deny that the assessment has an important part in the learning process because it determines whether or not the objectives we establish for the course are being met.
When we talk about the self-reflection process, we can take into account two different aspects. The first is accuracy. We can ask ourselves if the way in which we are teaching is the most accurate or not, and if there is a better way to teach a specific subject. The second aspect is the promotion of knowledge, and we can ask ourselves if we can promote a better way of learning.
Assessment tells teachers where to target students' intervention and when to provide additional support. It also helps to monitor the students' progress and to determine how well they are acquiring their knowledge.
To create an assessment instrument, we have to take into account different kind of characteristics. The first one is that the assessment has to be valid. That means that it has to measure what is supposed to be measured, and it has to be applied in the right context. The second characteristic is that assessment has to be reliable. That means that the instrument is accurate, it is consistent, and can be repeatable. It means that you can apply the same instrument in a similar context. The third characteristic is that it has to be feasible. It means that it has to be practicable in terms of time, resources, and the number of students to be applied. Also, there are some authors that talk about the fair aspect of the assessment that is inside the validity, but they take into account this aspect as a different one. First, they refer to the aspect of no discrimination students because of the instrument we use to assess. And the transparent aspect has to do with the way we establish the process. We have to establish a clear and process and criteria to evaluation and not change it according to the characteristics of the students during the process of assessment. We had to make clear since the beginning what are the aspects we are going to assess. Some authors like Kirchhoff in her research that is called the five-dimensional framework for authentic assessment. She talked in this research about the impact of the assessment as a main characteristic. She says that the results of the assessment has to have a real impact in education. They have to be authentic, they have to be worthwhile, no assess because to obtain a grade, but assess to transfer this knowledge to a real context of the students. That the knowledge they can transfer can be useful, for example, in their future work life.
Assessment describes what a learner can do and how well he or she do it. Assessment has an impact in grades, in their advancement or educational needs that a student can have, but also it leads us as a teacher to make a self-reflection of our teaching practice.
According to the Common European Framework of Reference, there are several types of assessment. Here I'm going to talk about some of them. The first group is the achievement or proficiency assessment. In the achievement, as its name says, is the achievement of some objectives that were established for a course. It assesses what is being taught so far. In the proficiency assessment, it assesses how the knowledge that students can acquire can be transferred to another settings. How students can apply in the real life what they have learned. The second group is the continuous or a fixed point assessment. In the continuous, it means the assessment is doing during the whole course or during the whole period, term or semester. For example, you can assess some tasks, some activities, some small performance during the whole course. In a fixed point assessment, it means that the assessment instrument is applied at a specific time during the course. The third group of assessment is the formative or summative assessment. In the formative is a qualitative process. The teacher is getting information about the weaknesses, the strengths, in order to give feedback to the student. In the summative is a quantitative process. It means that the result is a grade. In the third group, we have the direct or the indirect assessment. In the direct is when a student is observed by the teachers using a criteria grid to compare performance or normally the teacher is observing what is doing the students inside the class. On the contrary, the indirect assessment is normally apply a test. Normally is a reading test to know what students have learned. The other group of assessment is the performance of a knowledge assessment. In the performance, the students provide some samples of the language learner, provide some examples of language learning. Normally, it could be in an oral way or in a reading way. In the knowledge, it requires that students answer some question in order to provide or to show some evidence that the students can control some linguistic features. The last type, but is, as I already said, there is not only these types of assessment. There are a lot of instruments that we can use. But here, the last I'm going to talk is the subjective or the objective type of assessment. In the subjective, has to be is the judgment that a teacher have of their students instead of the objective that normally use an indirect test to measure how is the knowledge or what the achievement of the knowledge that a student have. In order to make some clarification, for me, testing and evaluation are instruments to assess students. We can create a test or we can create a evaluation task in order to assess the students' knowledge. Thanks for watching.